Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. And I was kind of struggling for what to do for a video today. I just finished rendering and started to upload the second part of the visit to Wargaming's global headquarters in Cyprus video. And I thought, you know what, it's been a long time since I did a World of Warships video. So here's a World of Warships video. This is a ship that I acquired very, very recently. It's the new premium Tier 8 Soviet cruiser, the Mikhail Kutuzov. And it's not bad. For a start, and this is very important, it's a very, very good looking ship. You can say what you like about the Soviet Navy, but they knew how to design good looking ships. That is one sexy beast. And it's an unusual machine as well. Its biggest advantage is also its biggest drawback. But for a start, we'll just look at some of the stats, and I'll explain the sort of thing I'm talking about. Survivability. Well, it's got a fair amount of health, 40,700. Where's my other premium Tier 8 cruiser, the Attigo? Let's just compare. Come on, where are you? There he is. 40,100. So, yeah, nothing wrong with that. The armour on the Attigo is better. While there isn't really a very, very well armoured cruiser in the game, it has up to 127mm of armour around its citadel. And this is one of the disadvantages of the Kutuzov, because it's a light artillery cruiser. At the very best, it only has 100mm of armour protecting the citadel, and in some places only 23mm. Now, it's not quite as bad as, for example, the Tier 7 American premium cruiser, the Atlanta, which only has 89mm of armour. In fact, you could fire destroyer guns at the Atlanta, firing armour piercing and penetrate and do full damage. But the Atlanta has its own charm, and it's a lot like, actually, the Mikhail Kutuzov, because while the Mikhail Kutuzov doesn't have those 127mm destroyer class armament guns that the Atlanta does, they are only 152mm, and this is a Tier 8 cruiser. The Japanese have 200mm guns at Tier 5. They have 203mm guns from Tier 6 and up. The Americans, they get their 203mm guns at Tier 7. The Germans, I'm not entirely sure, actually. I haven't gotten very far through the German cruisers. Let's have a look. The Königsberg, 150mm guns, but that's Tier 5. The Nürnberg, 150mm guns at Tier 6. The York, yeah, 210mm guns at the York, although that is kind of unusual. And then you get to the Admiral Hipper at Tier 8 and 203mm guns, fairly standard. The Mikhail Kutuzov, on the other hand, Tier 8 cruiser with 152mm guns, which seems a little lacking. And yet these aren't your normal 152mm guns. They have a range of 15.9 kilometers, which is phenomenal for guns of this caliber. Not only that, it's got a lot of them. 4 turrets, 3 guns per turret, 12 guns in total. The secondary armaments aren't too bad either. It's got 6 turrets with twin 100mm guns, 3 on each side. And of course, it comes with torpedoes. And the torpedoes are fairly decent too. They have a range of 8 kilometers, so better than the standard 6 kilometers that you see on the German cruisers. 2 launchers, 1 on each side. Each launcher has 5 tubes of 533mm torpedoes. These torpedoes are quite fast. They travel through the water at a speed of 60 knots, and they'll do 14,400 maximum damage. It takes 131 seconds to reload the tubes. They're not bad at all. I've scored a kill or 2 with these torpedoes, usually against battleships, because, you know, sailing in straight lines is what battleships are for. Anti-aircraft defense is also very, very good. Oh, those are the torpedoes. Here we go. Anti-aircraft defense. It has 16 double-barreled 37mm anti-aircraft guns. And, of course, the secondaries, those 6, actually, no, 12. My mistake. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 12 100mm guns are dual-purpose. They're also anti-aircraft guns. They have a range of 5 kilometers. The 37mm guns, self-defense only, really, 3.5 kilometers. Air defense, pretty nice. Speed, very, very good. Top speed of 33 knots. Rudder shift time is only 6.5 seconds. It's a very maneuverable cruiser. And concealment, not bad either. Surface detectability range, 13 kilometers. Range of the guns, 15.9 kilometers. Although, obviously, once you've fired the guns, you're going to get detected. And the air detectability range, 8.4 kilometers. So we've got a pretty decent package here. The only real issue is those 152mm guns. While they are very, very good for guns of their caliber, they're still just 152mm. And generally speaking, when you're sailing a cruiser in World of Warships, if you're shooting at other cruisers, you fire armor piercing, because you'll score citadel penetrations and you'll do lots and lots of damage. That's not strictly the case in this ship, because they're relatively low caliber for the tier that this ship is fighting at. And while the cruisers in World of Warships aren't exactly renowned for having the strongest armor in the game, 152mm guns is going to struggle to penetrate cruiser armor, particularly in the kind of battles that this thing can get into. Don't forget, it's tier 8, it can face tier 10 cruisers. So you do tend to find yourself firing a lot more high explosive than normal in this thing. But the high explosive shells are pretty good. They have a maximum damage of 2,200. And it's got a lot of these guns, 12 of them. So the relatively poor armor piercing performance of this ship, and I say relatively poor because if you're firing, if you find yourself in a tier 8 maximum match, then yeah, load the armor piercing and go for it. But the relatively poor armor piercing performance of these 152mm guns means that first you're probably going to be firing more high explosive than anything else. And when you're training up your commander, you probably want to go for, where is it? I haven't done it because I found this one out the hard way, but it's definitely the next skill point I am putting into this ship, expert loader. Minus 30% of the reload time when you're switching shell types. When you're switching between high explosive and armor piercing, that is very, very, very useful. And the guns don't take too long to load either. They have a rate of fire of 7.5 rounds per minute. The turrets turn reasonably quickly. They're not super fast, it's not an Atlanta after all, but 22.8 seconds is all right. And the dispersion is nice and tight. 133 meters average dispersion between shot, the fall of shot and the point of aim at maximum range. Also, again, another reasonably compelling reason to fire lots of high explosive from this ship, 12% chance of fire on target caused by high explosive shells. So this really is a kind of high explosive spammer. It's almost like a tier 8 Cleveland. I know I've been comparing it to the Atlanta throughout most of this video. I forgot what to call it. Jingles, you are so crap. Go home, you're drunk. But yeah, the turret configuration is similar to the Cleveland. Lots of rapid firing, relatively low caliber guns. And being like the Cleveland is no bad thing. So, yeah, I do like this ship. I do like it. I haven't played an awful lot in it. I haven't been playing an awful lot of World of Warships lately. But this is not a bad ship. Let's take it out for a spin, see how it plays. Wait, hold on. I knew I'd forgotten something. It's a premium ship. It comes with premium camouflage, and this is what it does. The Type 8 Mikhail Kutuzov camouflage decreases the firing accuracy of the enemy by 4% and increases the amount of experience earned by the ship and the commander by 50%. So, yeah. Anyway, now, let's take this thing out for a spin and see how she performs. So, tier 8 maximum match, which is where this thing is really going to shine. The fact that it does only have 152mm guns isn't that much of a problem in a tier 8 game. Unfortunately, this time around we had a bit of a fail platoon. There's a division of destroyers. We actually have a massive destroyer advantage in this match. We've got 4 destroyers to the enemy team's 2. Unfortunately, our destroyers, well, 3 of them, are absolute bloody idiots. They're all going to rush the middle, and they're trying to persuade the rest of the team to do it as well. Apparently, they saw it on YouTube, thought it looked hilarious, and, yeah. I suppose I'm probably responsible for that, so I shouldn't complain too much. Anyway, they're going to throw themselves away fruitlessly, which is going to be a bit of a problem, because we could really use somebody spotting over on the right flank of the map here. These 2 North Carolina class battleships have asked for some air cover, and I've said, yep, no problem. Although I have equipped the hydroacoustic search consumable rather than the defensive fire cooldown, because you just don't really see a lot of aircraft carriers playing World of Warships anymore. That is an entirely different issue, of course. Although, as luck would have it, every match where I've queued this thing up with the defensive fire cooldown rather than the hydroacoustic search, there have been no aircraft carriers. And the first time I thought, screw it, I'll take the hydroacoustic search consumable instead. Oh look, there's an aircraft carrier on each team. Just typical. So all of our destroyers have decided that they're going to go and capture the same point. Because reasons. You know, rather than going for A, where myself and these two North Carolinas are going, or going for D, which is busy being capped by the enemy team, as our carrier is sending his planes out to try and spot. So, yeah, great. Not all of our destroyers were complete morons, of course. We've got a Farragut, who's not in the division of 3 destroyers, who is heading in this direction, and is going to get us some useful targets to shoot at. I'm slowing down here, by the way. I've realised that actually I do not want to be the first one spotted. Well, I'm not going to be the first one spotted, because that North Carolina has just engaged this Torpedoes. He's still just outside my firing range. So I'm slowing down just to ensure that we, you know, when this guy does start returning fire, and he's going for the first North Carolina, I don't want to be the first one shot at. Of course, when I do start firing, I'm going to give my position away, and there's absolutely nothing saying that this Torpedoes here can't start shooting at me instead. But you tend to find that once people get their sights on one target, they will sometimes keep shooting at that target. So I should be relatively okay, at least for the first couple of salvos. Okay, second North Carolina opening up, Cleveland coming around with us as well, Farragut moving up, and we have a New Orleans in range. Alright. Took me a while to get used to the velocity of the shells fired by the Kutuzov. Similar gun configuration to the Cleveland, and it seems to perform, as far as the guns are concerned, a lot like a pre-nerf Cleveland. You don't really have to give an inordinately large amount of lead time to your shots in order to have them connect with target. The shells seem to travel through the air at a decent pace. And of course, neglected to mention this, the Kutuzov comes with a smoke screen. Yeah, don't get too excited, it only has one charge. But it's very, very useful. And I'm attempting to make the most of it here. It's worked initially by cutting my speed down drastically and popping smoke. Attempting, until I got detected again because I was going a little bit too fast when I triggered the smoke screen, and so I've moved out of the protective bubble of the smoke screen, if you like. But trying to pull the old destroyer tactics by sitting inside the smoke screen stationary, which gives you a good 30-40 seconds of uninterrupted firing time. However, it didn't work because I screwed it up, and so we're going to have to motor. We've already lost 2 of the idiot platoon, and we're going to lose all 3 of them, of course, but they haven't at least thrown themselves away completely fruitlessly. They have managed to at least kill 1 enemy cruiser and 1 battleship, and there we go, we've just lost the 3rd one. So the idiots are all dead. And I'm starting to take some fire. And I was, with the exception of that Farragut over there, I was the closest to all of these guys, and these enemy cruisers, if they've got a choice of shooting at a cruiser or a pair of battleships, they're going to shoot at the cruiser because their armor piercing is more likely to score citadel penetration. So, whoops, turn around, and that's when I spot the trouble that our carrier is in. I contemplated going back to help him, but he's just too far away. So, no. I'm going to stay with the battleships. Been detected again. That's the carrier-borne strike aircraft that have spotted me on the way back from attacking our aircraft carrier on the way back to the enemy aircraft carrier. Nothing I can do about that. I just need to get back into the front line here. Remember, 15.9 kilometer range on these 152mm guns is pretty good. And up ahead, another Mikhail Kutuzov. You don't see too many of them. Generally speaking, when you get into the kind of match where the Kutuzov can find itself in the matchmaking, you tend to see 1 or 2 of them. But it's not like the Torpedoes spam when the Torpedoes was first introduced. Oh, a Cleveland. Alright, armor piercing loaded. And I wasn't really expecting to hit that Cleveland, but holy crap, I did. Lofting the shells over the headland of the landmass over there, but the Cleveland's gone for the moment, so we're going to switch fire back to this New Orleans. Now, I made a bit of a song and dance about the relatively poor armor piercing penetration performance of of these 152mm guns, but at this kind of range where you're getting plunging fire, it certainly seems to do the trick. Towards the extreme limit of the firing range, where the shots have to be fired so high up into the air in order to reach the target, they come in directly from above, and the deck armour of cruisers of any tier is not very good. And so you can actually get some good damage done at this kind of range. It's when the range closes, when you're firing against, well, certainly not against a cruiser like the Cleveland, which is not particularly well armoured at all. I can definitely make the armour piercing work against the Cleveland. There we go. Yep, that's some decent damage. And the rate of fire of the guns, not bad at all. And keep this going. 7.5 rounds per minute. Adjust my shots, scored 7 hits. The battleships are opening up on this guy as well. Come on. He's never going to get away. There are just too many ships shooting at him. It's like somebody just scored a... Well, anyway, he's dead. So, good stuff. There goes the Attigo. So, it looks like... I mean, I'm pretty sure we were outnumbered on this flank, but we're doing all right. It looks like both the Attigo and the New Orleans are abandoning the Tirpitz, which is fantastic news for the two North Carolinas and not such good news for the Tirpitz. Get some shots in on the Attigo, and yeah, I'm doing a reasonable amount of damage to him as well. And I managed to get this island between me and him before he could reload, keeping an eye on the Tirpitz. Although I'm not too concerned about the Tirpitz at the moment, it's more the cruisers. The Tirpitz is being heavily engaged by our two North Carolinas. There goes the Attigo again. Can I hit him again? He's definitely running away. I do love the rate of fire of these guns. And the Attigo is probably going to be shielded from sight before the guns reload, so I'll switch fire to the New Orleans. Now, the New Orleans is substantially closer. So, I'm still firing the armour piercing, but this New Orleans is making some radical changes to his speed. I assumed that, given the situation, he would be moving at full speed and trying to get out of there as quickly as possible, as I score some easy experience and credits by nailing a couple of torpedo bombs on their way out. But he's not. He's actually changing speed, and he's doing a pretty good job of throwing my shots off. At this kind of range, because I'm substantially closer to the New Orleans and catching up, the armour piercing isn't coming in from directly above, and it's not quite close enough to ensure that I can get a flat shot right into the side of the ship and score those citadel penetrations. Instead, at this kind of range, there's a better than average chance that the armour piercing is going to come in at a steep angle and hit the side of the ship and just bounce off. So I've switched to the high explosive to try to secure the kill. Now, I'm pretty sure he was also firing high explosive because he was engaging the North Carolinas. Judging by the amount of damage he does when he realises that I'm here, and he starts firing at me. But I've set him on fire. He hits me, sets me on fire. Almost certainly high explosive. However, he does switch once he turns away, and he can only fire his rear gun turrets at me. There they come, and then he straightens out as the shots are in the air. I fire a salvo, and he gets the shots off just as I kill him, and bang. That must have been armour piercing. He definitely switched to the armour piercing to try to do as much damage to me as possible, and did a fair amount of damage before I sank him. So that just leaves the Tirpitz, and he's now inside my 8km torpedo range, but this is maximum range, and I fired a very, very narrow spread. All this guy has to do is change his course or speed once, and there's no way those torpedoes are going to hit him. Yeah, right. As if. Yeah, I don't even know why I bother trying to make this a point of suspense from here on in. You know he's going to get killed by my torpedoes, don't you? Because why bother changing course or speed? Sailing in straight lines is what battleships are for. We've hit him with a high explosive. We've set him on fire in a couple of locations. Initially, he was engaging the North Carolinas. He had no idea I was even here, completely oblivious to what was going on around him. But he switches fire to me, does not do an awful lot of damage, and of course he's a Tirpitz. His torpedoes have a 6km range, and I knew they were going to be there. So yeah, easily able to avoid them. And we just nailed ourselves a Tirpitz with the torpedoes from the Mikhail Kutuzov. Well, that's pretty much it for this match. I spend the rest of the game chasing after that Attigo and scoring some hits on him at long range, but it's not particularly interesting or exciting. We won quite easily, despite our destroyer division throwing themselves away in the first 3 minutes of the game. Although it wasn't a complete waste, they did take an enemy cruiser and battleship with them. what an enemy cruiser and battleship were thinking going anywhere near the Narrows on this map, two brothers, when there are 4 destroyers on the enemy team, is anybody's guess. But anyway, so yeah, the Mikhail Kutuzov. I really, really like this ship. It's very, very good. It's fast, it's manoeuvrable, it's got good defensive anti-aircraft firepower. The armour's terrible. And the guns are interesting. They're relatively low caliber for a tier 8, but they've got very, very good range, 15.9 kilometers. It's got 12 of them, and they fire 7.5 rounds per minute. Also, it's one of those rare cruisers that you get in the game that comes with a smokescreen generator, although it only gets 1 charge. Last but not least, it's got pretty good torpedoes. It can fire 5 torpedoes from each side. They have an 8-kilometer range, and they have a speed of 60 knots, and they do a very respectable 14,400 maximum damage per hit. Certainly good enough to sink a Torpedoes. The one bone of contention I have with this ship is the price. People always ask, Jingles, is this ship worth the money? I don't know. People always ask, Jingles, is this thing worth spending the money on? It's certainly worth spending money on. It's a very, very good ship. I just don't know if it's worth spending nearly £45 on, or whatever the equivalent that is in your currency. That's how much they're selling the ship for on the EU premium gift shop. And of course you can't just buy the ship in a port slot. It's only available as a bundle with 7,500 gold and 30 days of premium time. And I really don't need any more gold, and I really don't need any more premium time. This was actually the very first issue that I raised with Wargaming's European General Manager when I went to visit their headquarters in Cyprus last week. The whole issue of the pricing policies on the EU server gift shop. And it's a particular problem for the EU server gift shop because there are a multitude of different countries that all are part of the EU server. Much more so than on the North American server, and much more so than on the Russian server. And not all of these countries have the same economic situation. Western European countries like Britain, France and Germany tend to have more disposable income, and so can afford this kind of price point for this kind of package. Although I would certainly have preferred paying, say, £30 rather than the £45 and not had to take the 7,500 gold and 30 days premium time as well. However, if you, for example, come from some of the less affluent countries on the EU server, the Czech Republic, Hungary, Poland, who can afford to pay that amount of money for one premium ship? So is this ship worth the money? Well, it entirely depends on which country you come from and what your economic situation is, but it is definitely a very, very expensive ship. A good ship, and if you can afford it, you will definitely enjoy it. It is a very good ship. The question, of course, is can you afford it? And I'm pretty sure that for most people that answer is going to be no, regardless of which country you come from. It's one premium ship that costs more than a AAA PC game. So yeah, great ship, shame about the price. That's the Mikhail Kutuzov Soviet Premium Tier 8 cruiser, available for a stunningly expensive price on the EU Premium Gift Shop. I'm sure it's also available on other gift shops, but hey, I'm from the EU, so the EU is what I know. Available for the next 18 days. It is your money. Spend it wisely. Take care, folks, and I'll catch you next time.